I'm Marthel Neville, and you are in the strategy room. A federal appeals court ruling is sending shockwaves through the U.S. intelligence community. The court said Thursday the NSA's controversial phone record collection program goes against what Congress has allowed and urged lawmakers to step in. Yet some in Congress are weary about changing the law. Here with the reaction are political strategists Douglas Smith and Ashley Intartaglia. Good to see both of you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ashley, great. I'm going to start with you, Ashley. Are you surprised by the court's findings?
I'm not surprised, and Arthel, I have to say that those within the military community that I've spoken to also feel that this was the right call by the Federal Appeals Court to knock this down, and they feel that way for two reasons. One is that they believe that real terrorists don't use phones that are traceable, which makes the program irrelevant. And two, they believe that the real way of going after terrorists is with human eyes and ears on the ground wherever terrorism pops up, be it right here in the United States or overseas. And the third point that I'll throw in is after Edward Snowden revealed that this program existed, you can argue that it's ineffective just because now the bad guys know how we're collecting data, and it should be gotten rid of just on that fact alone.
Douglas, how do you see it?
Yeah, I'd actually agree with a lot of that, but what I think is most interesting is actually what the federal judge said. And in a sense, what I would paraphrase and say it was a mulligan. I mean, he's very much throwing it back into Congress's hands, saying, you know what, we're not going to ultimately decide on this, but we do need to reevaluate it. What I would tie it to, though, is this past week, the incident down in Texas. And I would agree with the fact that the collection of data has changed a lot. And where they were picking that data up was, in fact, on social media, which is open to anyone, and you don't actually need this court order to go into social media the way the FBI found it.
So then, Douglas, how would you think that Congress should proceed, and what are your realistic expectations of how Congress will act?
I think my expectations are small. I mean, it would be great if they actually resolve this and once and for all came down with a decisive position on how we should evaluate it. I do think, having been in the intelligence community, that we need to have a lot of tools available to us. I do think that it does need oversight. It needs proper viewing from both Congress, from the judicial system, and I think most importantly, we need to remember that while right now we are all paying attention to this, all it's going to take is one bad incident. And if we haven't handled this in the proper way, everyone is then going to look back and say, why didn't Congress, why didn't the courts, why didn't the administration handle this in a more effective way?
Ashley, jump in for me.
I completely agree with you on that, Doug. I think that this is one of those situations where the American people are going to be up in arms against it, saying it's, they're going to come out strongly that it's a violation of our privacies until another incident like Garland happens, and then everybody's going to jump and say, well, what were you doing? How were you trying to track this? Why didn't you stop it? The other thing is, as technology continues to play a more vital role in everything that we do, I mean, we do our shopping, we do our banking, we do everything, this conversation is not going to go away. And as one of the judges from the appeals court said, this is probably ultimately going to end up getting decided in the Supreme Court. We're going to have to figure out how we balance privacy versus protection moving forward.
Right. Let me read right now for you guys a statement from a spokesperson for the White House National Security Council stressing that President Obama, quote, has been clear that he believes we should end the Section 215 bulk telephone metadata program as it currently exists by creating an alternative mechanism to preserve the program's essential capabilities without the government holding the bulk data. And actually, picking up where you left off, I want to ask you, so if you were crafting revisions to the phone record collection program, how would you tailor it?
Well, that's the big question, because you have to. It's not just about who we're making phone calls to or who we're texting. We do everything on our phones now. We can surf the internet. We can go on social media. So they're going to have to sit down with experts and figure out how exactly we, again, balance that act between privacy and protection so that we can be actively seeking potential terrorist threats, as we're seeing the cyber terrorism thing is a growing trend. With ISIS recruiting people on a daily basis, probably an hourly basis through social media. But I think the bigger question moving forward as this debate continues, and ultimately it may end up with the Supreme Court, the NSA and people like Mitch McConnell and others who have supported the program are going to have to show us some hard evidence of why the program should continue moving forward.
Douglas, and I want to ask you how you would tailor it if you were making those revisions.
I think the thing to me that I'm most concerned about is actually the protection of the data and where that data is stored, whether it's on government servers or within the private sector. And I think that's the Achilles heel to the program here, is every day we see mass hackings. And that's what I'd want to really, really look at. Not just the kind of data we're collecting, not why we're collecting it, but ultimately how we're protecting it. I mean, every day we read about another major cyber attack, and that's where I think we should put a lot of focus, is once we've resolved who we should be listening to, I think we need to be very, very careful on how we protect it, how we protect that data.
Yeah, and you know, the debate's going to continue in the public court, if you will, that you know, the citizens' privacy versus the nation's security in terms of which one is more important. I have to leave it there right now, though. Douglas and Ashley, I want to thank both of you for joining me on this edition of the Strategy Room.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And for more on this developing story, go to foxnews.com. I'm Arthel Neville. Thanks for watching.